This is a special report from HKL News. Now from New York, here's Johnny.
Good evening. It's June 6, 1944. We have recently received word that the long-awaited invasion of France is underway, codename Operation Overlord. It appears to be taking place in Normandy along the English Channel coastline, between Cherbourg and Le Havre. The American troops are landing on the beach and are attempting to make it through the German fortifications Normandy. We now bring you to England, where it is 5 hours later. Reporting live from England is Seth Buchalter. Seth?
Thanks, Johnny. All reports is that there's an extremely gruesome battle going on across the English Channel. We hear that you can hardly move without walking on a limb or body. We are getting reports that 150,000 troops are getting off the 6,500 boats. They are just amazing numbers. Reports are that the ships are coming wave after wave. It must seem like a never-ending line of soldiers trudging through the blood-red waters. The first group to land on the beach that the Allies have named Omaha were met with almost certain death. We are hearing figures as high as 40% casualty rate for the first unit ashore. There are mines and guns fire and the need to walk through the deep water with heavy equipment. I have never seen or could imagine such bravery as I have heard reported this morning. You really have to be there to get what's going on. This is a battle that will never be forgotten by anyone. I'm here on the English coast with General Dwight Eisenhower, head of the operation. General, why attack at Normandy?
Well, Normandy isn't one of the closest spots we could land on away from England, but the Germans have been expecting the invasion for some time. The most logical place for us to land would have been Pas-de-Calais. We'd have gone to extreme measures to let them think that is exactly what we had in mind, to keep them from being too well prepared for this day. Targeting an invasion spot ranked at the top of Schafe's agenda. Across the channel, German defense is stretched from the North Sea coast to the Spanish border. We call it the Atlantic Wall. It consists of a string of recently constructed fortifications and strong points. Minefields and beach obstacles are also strewn about the inland areas. We knew Rommel was expecting us, so our strategy has been to force him to spread himself out as much as possible. Although I'm in overall command, and I had to make the call for this invasion to happen this morning, General Montgomery is in command of the actual landings.
What exactly is Schafe?
Schafe is the Supreme Headquarters Allied Expeditionary Force. Forming this was my first general order as general of the operation.
Before you sent the troops off on this mission, did you give them any advice?
My order of the day was soldiers, sailors, and airmen of the Allied Expeditionary Force. You are about to embark upon the great crusade toward which we have striven these many months. The eyes of the world are upon you. The hopes and prayers of liberty-loving people everywhere march with you. In company with our brave allies and brothers in arms on other fronts, you will bring about the destruction of the German war machine, the elimination of Nazi tyranny over the oppressed peoples of Europe, and security for ourselves in a free world. I personally went to see our airborne troops off. They are providing valuable inland support, but I knew that I was sending them on a high-risk assignment, and I feared that many of them would suffer terrible casualties. These were difficult orders to issue.
Why did you decide to attack today?
We have been watching the weather for some time now, waiting for the acceptable conditions for a 2 or 3 day period. As you must already know, the weather turned bad yesterday, June 5th, and I debated postponing the invasion. But when we got clearing for June 6th and 7th, and I said, after a lot of debate, how long can you hang this operation on end of a limb? Give the order. If we had waited any longer, we would have had to wait another month for favorable tide and moon conditions.
When you say we, who are you talking about?
The Allied forces.
How do you think the Allied forces are doing in this battle?
They're doing their best. This was a very difficult place to land because it is a thin beach right under cliffs, so the Nazis have an advantage defending. They have control of the high ground, and Rommel, from what I am hearing, booby-trapped some of the beach fronts. But so far, thanks to a little help from our battleships, our troops are slowly working their way up the cliffs despite the reported casualties and hopefully onto victory.
Thanks for talking to us on this difficult day.
Sure.
Now back to you, Johnny.
Thanks, Seth. Thanks, General Eisenhower. Now we got Nick at the shores of Omaha with a soldier right off the boat.
Thanks. I'm here with G.I. Bill Johnson. Bill, what was it like landing on the shore?
It was the scariest thing I have ever done. People everywhere were dying, and there's nothing you can do except find cover and pray that you don't get shot or blown up on the way.
What was it like on the boats coming over?
I lost track of time when we were on the boats, but I can tell you it was too long. The sanitation was horrible. The floors were slimy with vomit. Lots of the guys were seasick. We were standing up shoulder to shoulder the whole time, and some of the guys couldn't take being that cramped. We knew that this was the big one. We rode home and we prayed, and we did the best we could to be brave for each other.
What went through your head as you landed?
Everything. Everything that I have ever cared about went flying through my mind, and it seemed as though everything was in slow motion. As soon as the doors opened, guys were dying. We had orders not to stop and help the wounded. That was real hard. I kept thinking every time that I saw a wounded GI that it could be me. And believe me, you couldn't help out see wounded or dead guys everywhere where you looked. Finally, I put myself together and focused on reaching the cliffs. Only a few of us from the first wave made it. More guys are making it through now. If I survive this war, make it home, I will never get over what happened yesterday.
How did Eisenhower's words affect you?
It made me really see the importance of this battle. It also made me realize that this was what we had been training for all those months, and I was wishing I worked a little harder and paid a little closer attention. Mostly, I got scared, but after today, I can say I didn't even know what being scared was.
What was the importance of the battle, in your own words?
I'm not a big picture kind of guy. All I know is that I am fighting for freedom in the American way, and that I am fighting to make it home alive so that me and my family can live to be old in a free world.
Do you think the Allied forces will win?
We have to.
Thank you very much. Now back to you in the studio, Johnny.
Thanks, Nick. We have our expert consultant, Juan Garcia, standing by in England on the line to explain how the troops are doing and if he thinks that they will hold on. Mr. Garcia, what do you think about the battle so far?
Well, I can honestly say that when I first heard about Operation Overlord, I thought it would be a suicide mission. The German forces have suspected an invasion for some time, and Field Marshal Rommel is very clever. There is a reason why they call him the Desert Fox. But the fact that the Allied forces have somehow managed to keep the element of surprise in the favor and the sheer numbers of Allied troops invading Normandy is enough to convince me otherwise. The Allied forces came from across the English Channel to save France from Nazi domination. Think about this for a minute. Last night, the Germans were so confident that there wasn't going to be an invasion because historically no aquatic invasion had ever been attempted by any of the Allied nations in anything less than perfect weather, that Rommel himself went home to Germany to celebrate his wife's birthday. Also, my intelligence sources tell me that most of the high-ranking German officers had left Normandy of their inversion of war games somewhere near Paris. This morning, the German soldiers here in Normandy woke up, had their coffee, ate their hot dogs, or whatever they ate for breakfast in Germany. Then they went to their posts, and when the fog raised, there were 5,000 ships with 150,000 troops. That would ruin your day, wouldn't it? The Allied forces have the element of surprise and strength of numbers, which are critical advantages. One thing most people don't realize is that on Omaha Beach, without the help of the battleships, the mission would have failed off the bat. The ships were given direct orders to escort the transports to Normandy, but that's it. When the men started getting off the boats, it was a complete massacre. They were not expecting any more than 16 pills. There were a lot of booby traps on the beach, and they were under heavy fire from the moment the first GIs poured out of the boats. So the battleships started firing upon the German fortification and making an awful distraction, which gave the troops a chance of making it up there. The terrain of Omaha Beach is shown here on this cross-section. The GIs have about 300 yards to wade through, which also happens to be filled with obstacles as mines and spikes. Then there's a rock and shingle ridge to climb over that raise them up onto sand dunes and in some places a seawall. From there, they have to run about 200 yards out in the open to reach the cliffs that they have to scale anywhere from 100 to 170 feet up. Another setback for the Allied forces was that paratroopers that were going to reinforce from inland were dropped in the wrong places. We still haven't heard from any of them, and I understand that the Allied commanders are worried about their fate. The pilots are reporting that there was a lot of confusion last night during the drops, and they just had to do their best. Some paratroopers drowned in the channel and flooded fields. We also have reports of the town of St. Ignace was burning during the drop, and that perhaps others might landed in the middle of the German troops.
Mr. Garcia, do you think the Allied troops will win?
Right now, if I had to bet on either side winning, I would definitely say the Allied troops. Reports are that things have gone much smoother at the other landing sites, and the Germans have to be concerned. They still have a lot of fighting strength behind them, but they are pretty spread out, and it will take some critical time to pull their forces together to answer this challenge from the Allies.
Now we have Casey Hoffman interviewing a member of the French resistance. Casey?
Thanks, Johnny. I'm here in Normandy with a member of the French resistance. We are protecting his identity. Thank you for speaking with us.
You're welcome.
How do you think your people are doing so far in this?
Last night, when I finally heard the codes on the radio, I could not believe that the day had finally come. Our part in the story has been to cut the communication and destroy roads and bridges to hinder the German response to the invasion.
Why do you think they attacked here?
I think they attacked here because the beaches are wide, and if they were able to distract the Germans into thinking that the liberation of France would be more practical to attempt at a closer point to England, they would be able to have the advantage of the surprise.
I have one more question.
No, I really must go. We still have a lot of work left to do to free France. We still have a long war in front of us, but for the first time in a long time, I see hope in the darkness.
Thank you and good luck.
Thank you.
Now back to Johnny in the studio.
Now we will bring you behind German lines where Juan Garcia is with Major Pluscat. Juan?
Thanks, Johnny. I'm standing here with General Warner Pluscat. Thank you for letting us allow to speak with you today. General, what happened last night?
Well, I was in my bunker overlooking the beach. I hadn't heard anything from my superiors since 1 a.m. It was cold and I was tired. I thought to myself, no news was good news, but I was nervous because of the mass formation of planes and paratroopers that had been falling like snow during the night. We were hoping that they had been a diversion for something that was going on elsewhere. There was a dense fog. As I looked across the Cherbourg Peninsula, I swept across the horizon. I saw nothing. I told Captain Lutz Winkling and Lieutenant Fritz Thien that I was about to give up for the night, but for some reason I decided to take another sweep. Dawn was breaking. When I reached dead center of the bay, I froze. The horizon was filling with ships of every size and description. It looked like there was thousands of them. They had appeared from nowhere. At the moment, I felt fear for my Germany. I turned to Winkling and Thien and said, It's the invasion. See for yourself." There I called Major Block at the 35th Division headquarters. First Block didn't believe me when I told him how many ships I was looking at. Then he asked me which way they were heading. All I could think to say was, right at me.
That must have been a frightening sight. Thank you for your point of view. Do you know where you will be taken now that you have been captured by the Allies?
No, I don't.
Thank you. Back to you, Johnny.
Earlier, Casey Hoffman spoke with Field Marshal Rommel, who was in Germany celebrating his wife's birthday.
Happy birthday, Mrs. Rommel. Happy birthday to you. Yay! To Mrs. Rommel.
Mrs. Rommel. Happy birthday.
Cheers.
Field Marshal Rommel, how did you hear of the invasion of Normandy?
I got a phone call. As soon as I got the call, I knew exactly what it was. All I could think to say to myself was Normandy. I should have known.
So you were expecting an invasion?
We have known for some time that it was coming, but did not expect an attack with the predicted weather conditions. My superiors were convinced that they would land in Pas-de-Calais, especially after we found a dead soldier with apparent orders to do so. I thought that it would be too easy, and our defenses in that area were too strong. Right now, I'm waiting for permission to move my tank reserves to Normandy. We could not send our anti-invasion forces along the whole coast, but I still had some pretty good fortifications along the beach. I am sure that they found some of our nasty surprises.
Do you think that the Germans had the advantage?
Yes, we do. In Normandy, the winding lanes and little fields enclosed by hedgerows on top of banks very much favor us as the defender.
Why were your superiors so sure that the attack would be in Calais?
Well, as I mentioned, we found the dead man with a briefcase that had information concerning an invasion in Calais. Our spies have been coming back with reports that this invasion was impending for Calais, And finally, we had aerial photos of a large buildup of Allied forces in Dover, where there would be much shorter crossing of the channel. I'm beginning to think that there must be some trick involved because none of our information would support invasion forces of the size we saw in Dover and those that landed in Normandy. They just couldn't have that much force.
Do you think that this is the beginning of the end of the Third Reich?
I could never say that to you. The War of France has just begun and my armies are well prepared.
For more information, stay tuned to HKL News. We will update you on the current situation.
This has been a special report from HKL News.
This is the cast of HKL News.